Hey, it's Dr. Shante, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you have ever heard of the book Eat, Pray, Love, or if you've read it, you know that the book is about a woman who experienced this existential crisis and went off on this adventure to try to heal herself. Well, today I will talk to you about my own Eat, Pray, Love experience and the adventure that I took to New York and to London through various bookstores to heal myself through the grieving process. Keep watching. So let me first adjust your level of expectation. Did I eat? Yes. Did I pray? Yes. Is there love at the end of this story? Of myself? Yes. But this is not how I found some burgeoning romance overseas. I just want to adjust your level of expectation. So I shared in my first video for this season, for this comeback to YouTube, that books are the primary vehicle that I have used to heal during the grieving process. So I lost my mother over the summer. And in addition to therapy, I knew I needed more. So when we experience stressful experiences, there are generally, and this is a very broad sweep, but there are generally four responses to stress: fight, flight, fawn, freeze. Okay. Some people call them trauma responses. And fight means you're just gonna like face it head on, just like aggressively confront it. Flight is escapism. It's like, I can't deal with this right now. I need to get to a place of safety. I need to get somewhere and recalibrate. I am a flight. I am a flight risk. I have no shame in saying that. When I am stressed, I need to step away and get my thoughts together. And so for me, books was a huge part of that because books is an escape. Like you can open one page and be instantly transported someplace else. Travel is healing for me. It always sparks my creativity. I always feel enriched. I always feel better coming back than I did when I left. It just offers so much nuance. It very much is a living book. So going to a new destination is like writing a new chapter. Combining those two things, books plus travel, ding, 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 winner, winner, chicken dinner. I did 2 book crawls in October. I wish I had quote unquote vlogged more of this, but child, I was in grief. So I will be showing you like pictures throughout and telling you all of the places that I went, but it's not going to be like a traditional vlog, like, oh, here's this book and here's the train ride over. It's not that. But the reason why I'm sharing it with you is because healing is my jam. And I recognize that sitting down and talking to a therapist is not always accessible to people. Sitting down and talking with a therapist is not always effective for people. And what the studies have shown is that we heal best when we are in community. And I will die on this hill. Books are community for me. Books are community. I tell people books were my first friends. So every character that's in these books is someone to know. It says something about the human experience. And so being able to connect community through books and travel and just have a way of escaping to what I feel is a place of safety was such an incredibly worthy and worthwhile endeavor because I feel like it did more for my healing journey than therapy ever could have alone. Like studies have shown that healing in community is actually one of the best ways to heal. And even if you don't have physical community, you can have creative community through books. I started in New York and I went in October. Once upon a time, November was my favorite month of the year. But slowly but surely, little by little, October is that girl. October is all of the vibes. Fall is my favorite season. And so fall evokes cozy, rainy, leaves, gloom. It's not too hot, but it's not too cold. It is just, mwah, okay? It is chef's kiss. And so I took both of these trips in October. So the second week of October, I went to New York and I said I was going to do a 4 or 5 book bookstore crawl and just kind of make my way through various neighborhoods, going to their bookstores, because every bookstore has its own personality. It has its own vibe. It has its own jam. And so one of the first places that I wanted to go, obviously, was the Strand. It lives up to the hype. It lives up to the hype. You could spend a whole day in the Strand. You could spend all day in that bookstore. The smell of the books, the stacks, like honey. The Strand is deservedly so that girl, okay, in New York. And being in those stacks, having the tactile experience of touching those books and just seeing endless rows of possibilities. A bookstore is the epitome of choose your own adventure. You can just go book by book, row by row, shelf by shelf, and the possibilities are endless. The Strand was a wonderful experience. Spent several hours in there. It has several floors. There's merch, all the things. Another place that I went is a place in New York called the Book Club, and it is a bar slash bookstore. You can get a cocktail and read. And so I will have a couple of pictures of like some of the displays and what the vibe is there. And so if you want a vibey, chill, speak easy type of reading experience, I recommend going to the book club slash bar in New York. And I will not tag, but I will put these addresses and spaces down in the description so that if you want to go and check them out at your leisure, absolutely do that. The most beautiful bookstore that I went to in New York is a bookstore called Rizzoli. Oh my gosh. Like it was gasp. It was clutch the pearls. It was, this is gorgeous. Like, and so if you are an aesthetic reader and you just want to be in the beauty of books and you want an elevated experience and you want to walk through the shelves and feel like you're in a luxury hotel slash bookstore, Rizzoli is the place for you. It Wow. And it was just so, it was elevated. But it was accessible. Okay. So it wasn't uber bougie. At the same time, it was very inviting. It was very inviting. They have a really cute children's space. It was absolutely a worthwhile visit as part of my crawl in New York. And I went to McNally Jackson. McNally Jackson, I think, is in the Soho neighborhood of New York. It is very popular with the likes of Michelle Obama. They have several readings there, and they have multiple levels in this store. And it too, their romance section. So for those of you who are romance readers, it had a very robust, color-coded, very aesthetically pleasing romance section. Actually, McNally Jackson is where I found one of my Thursday Murder Club books by Richard Osman. Highly recommend. It is worth a visit. Now, I made the mistake of going on a Saturday. I had this whole kind of itinerary laid out, and my intention was to hit all the bookstores before the weekend, because once the weekend comes, baby, you got the brunch crowd, you got the bookish, you got the people who are not in school and the people who are not at work. And so McNally Jackson, I would like to go back when it's less crowded, but it was juking, okay? Like, it was everywhere you looked, everywhere you turned, there was a body. And so just keep that in mind if you are planning your bookstore crawl. So the last thing that I did while I was there is an organization called Reading and Rhythms. And what they do is they host reading experiences, gatherings all over New York. And so they do this in the summer, they do this throughout the year. And so they will choose a spot. They might choose the pier, they might choose office workspace, not an office building, but you know, those like co-working spaces. They might choose a museum, they might choose the the field of a stadium. Like, they will choose various places to say, hey, this is where we're going to be. Bring your book And the way that it works is that you bring your book, a book of your choosing, and you read for like 20, 25 minutes. And then they pause and say, okay, please turn to someone and have a conversation about what you just read. And so you get to have conversations and discussions with perfect strangers about books you just read. And then you read for another segment. And then they say, pause, please talk to somebody else. And then you turn to somebody else and you have another conversation about the books that you just read. And so I did this and it was so good. And it is a dry experience. And so unlike the book club bar where you get cocktails, this was a dry experience, and they usually have like a dry sponsor. So somebody who is providing like sparkling water or some non-alcoholic beverage for people who are sober, curious, and want to have interaction and engagement and talk about and meet new people. Like that place, that experience, the Reading and Rhythms group, it screams meet cute. It screams meet cute. And so if you are in the dating game and you are not about that app life, go to one of these events. Bring your book. Find your boo. May the force be with you. I'm rooting for you. Okay. So that was New York. And of course, in between that time, I went to Cat's Deli and just some really fun places that really just kind of lifted me out of the fog, right? Like it just really was such an inviting and such a welcome departure from sitting and stewing and ruminating in the doldrums of grief back at home. So 2 weeks later, I went across the pond to London. And let me say this, it is London from the US. So first of all, getting to Europe, getting to the UK from the US is not a cheap flight. I'm not even going to pretend like it is. However, there are peak seasons and there are not peak seasons, and fall is not a peak season. And so if you go when it's like cold, like October, November, December, not so much because now we're into the holiday season and so the prices go up again. But if you can kind of go between like that August to October window when, the kids are back in school or what have you, you can actually get a decent flight over there depending on where you're coming from. I'm coming from Chicago. Somewhere between like $500 and $700, which is not terrible. Okay, not terrible. So I went across the pond with two goals in mind. One, to continue the bookstore crawl experience and to go to my first football game as a spectator because I have been to a football game and we call it soccer, but I've been to a football game here in the States. I saw Chelsea and Dortmund play at Soldier Field in Chicago in August, but it's not the same thing. Football in outside of the US, like soccer as we know it, is a different thing. The fans are a different vibe. Like they are so invested, they are so in it. And so I looked specifically, I'm like, what team is playing during my time there? And the team that was playing was West Ham United. It was a great game. It was a great atmosphere. They won. They were playing Manchester United. So there we go. Those fighting irons, I think is what they're called. Don't skewer me if I got that wrong. But that was my goal. So to continue the bookstore crawl and to go to my first football game. And so where did I go in London as part of my crawl? So my bookstore crawl through London started at Waterstones in Piccadilly. Y'all, y'all, just, it's, I learned two things. One, the book covers are different in the UK than they are here in the States. So if you are about the physical book life and you are buying books from the United States, when you go across the pond and you go into the bookstore, that same exact book likely has a different color. And I love that. So it was like an artistic experience as well as one of books and community. There was also this aesthetic element because London has some just breathtakingly beautiful bookstores. And many of them, not most, many of them have cafes and loungy couches, and it's massive. So there's like 5 or 6 floors, and each floor offers a different experience, and it's just phenomenal. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And so I bought a few books out of there. I wish I could remember and like have them in hand, but I'm trying not to lean too far into like booktube territory, because this experience is really just about healing, and I'll cover that in a minute. I also went to the infamous Daunt Books because I love a tote bag. Sue me. I love merch. Okay, so from the Strand, I have one of my favorite sweatshirts, which is the Strand bookstore sweatshirt. And Daunt Books have these really sturdy tote bags. Little known fact. So James Daunt, I believe his name is James Daunt, the creator of Daunt Books in the Marylebone neighborhood of London, is also currently bringing Barnes and Noble back into the game. So have you noticed that Barnes and Noble has changed their membership, that they have upgraded their bags because they are mirrored after the bags that you can get in London? So boom, Daunt Bookstore is beautiful. It's small, it's smaller, but it's beautiful. And so and it has this old charm. It has this beautiful bay window. And so if you Google Daunt Books or you hop on TikTok and look for Daunt Books, it just has this beautiful aesthetic, and it's very cozy. And so I was able to pick up a copy of Jane Austen's Persuasion. It's probably my second version of that book. Hold on. Let me see. Are you in here? There you are, darling. So I was able to pick up this version of Persuasion by Jane Austen. It is probably, it's like the 200th anniversary edition of this book, and it's annotated. It has maps. It has like these kind of like frayed edges, kind of like these textured edges on the page. And I mean, it just, and Persuasion and Pride and Prejudice are like neck and neck for like my favorite of Jane Austen's works. So yeah, was able to get this version of the book along with my Daunt tote bag. And so went to Daunt Books. So Waterstones Piccadilly, Daunt and Marylebone, Words on the Water. Words on the Water is a book barge. It is on the water. It's near St. Pancras, King's Cross station, so just like a couple of blocks over. And it is a book barge. And you just go on the water and you look at these books. And it just, I'm almost like borderline getting emotional about it, because it was just such a hug, because I was in the grieving process. I wasn't quote unquote running away from my problems, but every book experience, every bookstore was a reminder that there is life in these pages. Because what are books about? Books are about some aspect of the human experience, and life goes on. It has to. And so it was just a reminder that you don't have to be landlocked. You don't have to be stuck in the same place. Words in the water, that it can take you anywhere. Books can take you anywhere. And it was also a reminder that whimsy matters. Like, how whimsical is that? How cute is that? So some people have like book trucks, like they've turned Airstreamers, and they've turned like old Chevy vans and Ford pickups into to mobile bookstores. And you can even get them on the water. And there's just something that is so whimsical about that, because grief is serious, and it's sad, and it's dark, and it's layered, and it's complicated. And so to be smacked in the face with whimsy is just a reminder that it is okay to be playful, and it is okay to be soft, and it is okay to have joy, and to lean to creativity, and to be a little bit mad, because I'm sure somebody thought they were absolutely bonkers to have put a bookstore on the water, but it works. And there was a very nice crowd for the Words on the Water. And then the last place that I went in my bookstore crawl was Foyles. Foyles was another, I mean, just massive bookstore. And the thing is, you would think that it would be overwhelming, because it can feel like that. Like sometimes when you walk into like museums, you're like, okay, there's no way I'm going to get through this museum. I'm just going to have to cover like the West Wing today, and then I'll just have to come back another time. And Foils is not like that. It's like, even though it had several floors, it was really easy to navigate, and it was very well organized. They also have a lovely cafe at the top where lots of people were working and eating and being. And it was just, even though this was a solo trip, I felt very much not alone. There's this sign in the Foil store that says, like, welcome reader or something like that. If you are among books, you are among friends. And so I have a picture of that. And I was like, that's exactly how I feel being in the store. Like, I am among friends. And also Foils has a nice vinyl section. And so if you are a vinyl collector and you're about the music and that aspect of the media experience, they also have a section for that. This bookstore crawl, the one in New York, the one in London, healed so many places in my grieving process, because it offered adventure, it offered community, it offered whimsy, it offered friendship. And it was a reminder that you don't have to be stuck in your despair, that you, whether you hop on a plane to go somewhere or whether you just open a book, you can be transported and you can start moving towards joy, and you can start moving towards connection with these characters. You can start moving towards a connection with that experience. And that's the last thing that I will say, is that books, in large part, I think are making a huge comeback for a couple of reasons. One, after a while, you just kind of get tired of being on your phone all the time. It's the same audio trends, it's the same dance moves, it's the same, look at all the things I bought at Amazon. It's the same kind of like clean girl aesthetic. Like, there's so much sameness in it. And to a degree, I would probably say that BookTube, BookTok is almost a little bit in danger of that, because people are reviewing the same books, but I digress. There's a little bit of homogeneity to it, which I think kind of robs the books of the experience that they can offer. Okay, like, so because books have such a unique way of drawing the reader in, I think that if too many of the same books are being kind of like pushed to the forefront, then that leaves many great books on the shelves that are worthy of consideration as well. But another reason why books are making a comeback is because it's experiential, and it offers a form of connection in ways that social media just doesn't, because social media isn't social. You can see people post on social media all the time and not know anything about them. And yet, through books, when you are having a shared experience, you can have conversations and say, well, here's what I thought about that character, or here's what I thought about that dynamic, or, ooh, I had mixed feelings about this thing that happened, or here's how I connected to it, or here's how I reacted to it, or here's some questions that I have about it. It really is evocative of and begs for connection and community in ways that social media just does not. And so I say all this to say, if you are looking for your own Eat, Pray, Love-esque adventure and you are a lover of books, I highly recommend that you do a bookstore crawl. In fact, every time I travel, I try to find a bookstore. One of my favorites, ooh, if you are a Harry Potter person, I highly recommend going to Portugal and going to Porto, which is like in the north of Portugal, one of their major cities, and go to a bookstore called Livraria Lelo, because the staircase, this infamous red staircase, is rumored to be one of the inspirations for the moving staircases in the Harry Potter books. And so, yeah, in every city where there is books, there is adventure, there is invitation, there is community, there is connection, and all of those things are a phenomenal recipe for healing in the grieving process. So that is going to do it. Let me know if you have ever done a bookstore crawl. I would love for you to hop in the comments and let me know what is your favorite bookstore in your city. I would love to go back to New York and go into some of the more indie bookstores. Like there's a bookstore in New York called The Ripped Bodice, which just specifically focuses on romance. I would love to go back there. And I also love that this video is going to be coming out in February because some of you might be thinking, I might want to do my own bookstore crawl. So even in preparation for the cozy season of fall, you might want to do your bookstore crawl at some point in the summer in anticipation of the cozy read season. But however you decide to do it, I would love to hear your thoughts, your comments. And if you like this content, I encourage you to subscribe and share, and I will see you next time.